there were plenty of awesome consoles that weren't made by Nintendo, including, for example, the Atari 2600, Sega Genesis, Sega Master System, Sega Saturn, Sega Dreamcast, TurboGrafx 16, PS1, PS2, PS3, Xbox 360, Xbox One, original Xbox, all that jazz. And today, I figured we could go and look at a Sega Genesis game. However, at the moment, I currently do not own a Sega Genesis, so I have to play on the Xbox 360. Now, of course, there are plenty of Sega Genesis games that I really like, some of which being Sonic & Knuckles, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and Sonic the Hedgehog 2, as well as Sonic 3D Blast. Gotta love the pseudo 2.5D graphics, similar to those featured in other games like Donkey Kong Country, Star Fox 2, Donkey Kong Country Diddy's Conquest, and Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. And there are a few Sega Genesis games that have 2.5D graphics too. Like I mentioned earlier, there is Sonic 3D Blast, but there is also a series of games, two of which to be exact, that are on the Sega Genesis called Vectorman. And so, out of the two Vectorman games I'm going to be reviewing, I think I'd rather do the second one, because I'm a bit better at that one than the first one, but let's just get right into it. It's going to be fun. Let's do this. So, when you start the plane, your character is flying away from Earth, but suddenly, as they start listening to some tunes, their plane gets hit by a missile. And so now, you're basically falling down to Earth again, and you have to shoot at other enemies and collect these weird star things. It's pretty fun, but it's also a little difficult. Well, looks like we're getting closer to the ground, and there are lots of bug-looking creatures and spiders and other stuff flying all around, and it's easy to die in this game too. You can also shoot in multiple directions, which is a pretty amazing feat for a console that came out in 1989, and for a game that came out in 1996. So this was just around the era where 3D gaming became popular, such as in Super Mario 64. Alright, well, we've now made it back onto the ground, and we have collected 25 out of 26 photons. And now you're in this crazy swamp. It's very interesting. Sure, Trevor, I suppose. So, just like the Donkey Kong Country games over on Super Nintendo, this game is like a pseudo 2.5D side-scrolling platforming game, and you have to collect more of these stars, and you also have to shoot stuff like spiders and snails. And also you fall down into this crevice, and you gotta be careful and avoid these bursts that these snails shoot, or else you could die. Also, your character, I believe his name is Vectorman, not too sure, he can also double jump, and he uses rocket boosters or whatever on his feet. Now, I'm not really an expert on this game. I'm more of an expert when it comes down to games like The Legend of Zelda, Super Mario, Metroid, Star Fox, Super Smash Bros., Animal Crossing, all that jazz. Also, I just learned that you can kill enemies with your rocket boosters, which is just absolutely incredible. Thank you, Sega, for making this game 10 times more awesome. And I died. Luckily, however, I am using save states, so it should help me not struggle so much in this game. However, if you want to be OG, I will allow anyone. I'm not preventing you from using your old Sega Genesis or Retron 5 or whatever you're using to play this on an actual cartridge. But for me, because I don't have one of these consoles, it's best that I probably just use the Ultimate Genesis Collection on Xbox 360, which is how I play most Genesis games. There are also plenty of secrets in this game too that you can find all over the place. For example, there is this glowing green gemstone looking thing, and if you shoot at it enough times, then you'll actually get a treasure of some sort. Pretty cool, eh? Give it a few years, Trevor. Give it a few years. Honestly, this game is just a little too hard for me, but if you're a fan of the Sega Genesis and just the 16-bit era overall, then I highly recommend that you try this game, especially if you're into robots. And actually, this game kind of reminds me a tiny bit of the Mega Man games, and this is just a really cool game, and I'm not the best at it, but I hope to get better soon. So in conclusion, if there's one Sega Genesis game that you haven't played yet, and you want to try and find one that you haven't played and that might be fun, then this is your best bet. You could also play the original Vectorman, because I'm sure that some people may think that the first one is better than the second one. But personally, I thought that the second one was a little more fun. And I'm sorry that I couldn't really pump out a huge review, because, like I said earlier, the game is really hard, and I'm not exactly good with Sega Genesis games, although I'm quite the Sonic and Knuckles player, so... Anyways, see you soon.